Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us on this evening. It is great to see a number of familiar faces. So as Jeffrey said, I am Giselle Marcus. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I am from New York City, born and raised in Harlem, New York. And I currently work at Washington University in St. Louis as a professor of practice for diversity, equity, and inclusion at the Olin School, which is the business school here at Washington University. And as Jeffrey had mentioned, I came to know about Untitled for Africa by way of Betsy Cohen, who also is a Harvard Business School graduate. So I met her since I've been here. So I wanted to say thank you for the introduction to Vitality by way of an organization that I'm a member of, which is the Links Incorporated, the Archway, Missouri chapter, which is an organization of 1,600 professional women of African descent across 292 chapters in 41 states, the District of Columbia, the Bahamas, and one of the areas of thrust that we have in terms of the volunteer work that we do approximately 1 million hours of volunteer work annually. And within St. Louis, I am the co-chair of the Archway, Missouri chapter of the International Trends and Services Committee. And as a result of that, and with COVID, we were looking for organizations to partner with. And Betsy introduced us to Vitality for Africa, and it's been an amazing relationship. So I wanted to thank them for inviting me as one of their authors. So that is my introduction, Jeffrey.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Giselle. And thank you also for the great work you do. I think, like I mentioned, for this purpose, the purpose of this forum is actually to hear some of the information from others sharing about their whatever they have written books, and some of the, like you, I know you have been you're part of a group that has written a book, Clarity Out of Chaos.
Yes.
I was able to download it online, and I was able to read it. Haven't finished all the chapters, but I think I'm kind of interested more with the topic of the networking, which is your strength, and that's your area. But I think before we jump into that, I would like to know more about. You can tell us a little bit about Clarity Out of Chaos. What does it mean? You can tell us something about it.
Certainly. So Clarity Out of Chaos is actually an anthology. And an anthology is a series of essays that circle around a particular topic. So in this instance, Clarity Out of Chaos was actually born out of the COVID pandemic and the fact that it was challenging, for many people. So this particular book was actually targeting ideally women over 40 in regard to various topics. So overcoming challenges in the workplace, losing a loved one, challenges in the pandemic, empowering women. So each essay is very different. And mine was actually on the topic of networking, because it's something that I am actually very, very passionate about. So I'm a co-author with about 19 other amazing women.
Great. Thank you so much. And you mentioned a little bit about the difference between the anthology and the normal other books, which is very interesting, because I think it's something very new to me to come across that. But I think maybe what you may want, we want to hear the next part is maybe what inspired you to really focus on this area of networking?
Certainly. And I should add something that was very important I should add about the book is that on Amazon, within 48 hours of it being on sale, it actually hit the bestseller list in 4 countries. So the US, Canada, the UK, and Australia.
Awesome.
So that was pretty exciting. And I think that's just a testament of the collaboration of all the different authors. Mm-hmm. But why did I write this chapter on networking? So for me, and it's very interesting that this is an audience of of Bicentennial for Africa, in that I actually had an expatriate assignment where I worked abroad in Johannesburg, South Africa for 1 year. It's been over 10 years ago. And I really did not embrace networking until I was about 39. So almost 40 years old. And I have come to, at that time, when the light bulb went on, I felt that this is a topic that others should know about. And I was probably late learning about it, primarily because I was a first generation college student, and didn't know anything about it. I mean, I was always taught, my mother always taught me, put your head down, blinders on, do a job, do the work you're supposed to do, don't work outside.
It's your first time. Take it easy on yourself.
So as a result of that, my focus was always the work. And I remember when I had my first job, which was now at Accenture. And I remember one evening, they actually had brought cocktails into the office where you're actually drinking beer and having cocktails. And I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this is happening in the workplace, because I just wasn't accustomed to that. So I tried to stay as far away from anyone that was drinking and as far away from the bar as possible. And I didn't realize then that that was actually an opportunity to get to know your colleagues, to get to know people that were more senior than you. So I didn't learn that lesson then. But when I went to Johannesburg, South Africa, it was my first time. It wasn't my first time going to Africa, but it was my first time working away from my home country for over a year. And what I was concerned about is when I came back after the assignment, I wanted to ensure that I actually had a job to go back to. Because once you go on an expatriate assignment at the company I was working with, they don't necessarily tell you what your next assignment is going to be. It's really up to you to fend for yourself and to figure it out. So before I left, I asked my HR director, how does this work? I'm giving up the job that I'm in. How do I find a job coming back? So she told me to contact, and I see a former colleague on here, and he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. She told me to contact Ian Campbell, who at the time was the VP GM of the business unit that I was in. And he was the person that signed off on all the expatriate assignments. So she said, you should talk to him because he has seen, a number of our employees go abroad. So I met with him and I asked him, how this worked. And what he suggested to me was, because there had been other employees who had gone away for up to 3 years and came back, quite frankly, they were forgotten about, not on purpose, but, not being seen. You can be forgotten. So as a result of that, he cautioned that I should come back to the States at least once a quarter, and that I should contact my sponsors and my mentors. And he volunteered right there on the spot without me asking to actually be my sponsor, which I think was actually a great turning point, for my career. So I took that advice. I did what he asked me to do. And I made sure that I learned about the backgrounds of my mentors, learned more about him as my sponsor, so that when I came back, I was able to actually, ask them questions about things that they were interested in. So like my sponsor, for example, he's a triathlete, so I would always ask him about, his next event. So, engaging in something that's of interest to them. And that is really what networking is all about. So the long story short, rushing to the end of the chapter that I wrote, is as a result of following his instructions and networking with my mentors and my sponsors, and doing a good job, of course, when I was in Johannesburg, South Africa on the project that I was on, my concern about finding an opportunity when I returned really was not a problem, because I was actually offered 11 job opportunities, of which 3 of them were the ones that I looked at most seriously, and with the VP GM, figured out which one I was going to accept. So what I learned from that experience is that through networking, one thing that you can do, is advance your career. And I thought about, being that I learned that at 39, how many opportunities that I possibly miss out on by not networking. So I consider it my gift to others to just share about the importance of networking and to help dispel myths about networking. And I always like to share easy to use tips so that it's not a heavy lift for those that visit my talks in order to actually make a change in terms of networking effectively.
Great. That's a good connection, because I think when you mention about networking is a broad term, and I think I would say mostly for me as an immigrant also is also not, and I think Betsy may agree with me. Networking is not something that is very common thing for us as a population that I come from, where we coming from. I think the definition of networking may be different from maybe what maybe the Americans would be able to define it. But I think I wanted to hear from you, maybe the networking is a broad term. You wanted to, on your article, you talked about networking, how to set up yourself apart. Tell us a little bit about why specific on that area.
Sure. So I said how to set yourself apart because everyone is so bombarded with email, with social media, with so many different stimuli coming to you, that in order to break through that and to be recognized, you have to do something unique. So that's why the title for the actual essay that I wrote, setting yourself apart. And in so doing, I recommend that people do things that other people don't think about doing. And they're easy things. So one thing that I enjoy doing and that I'll share with the audience today is I recommend sending a birthday greeting on your half-yearly birthday. Why? Because these days with social media, typically you get so many wonderful greetings on your birthday, on all the social media outlets, by text on your phone, by email. And sometimes it can be really overwhelming to keep up with. And then I find sometimes, like on LinkedIn, I'll go to communicate with someone. I'm like, oh my God, like 3 months ago, they wished me a happy birthday and I totally missed it, right? So you can kind of get lost in the fray on birthdays, which is a really celebratory time. So if you choose, instead of honoring them on their birthday, honoring them on their half-yearly birthday, which would be 6 months before, they're not going to be expecting that. Has anyone ever gotten a half-yearly birthday card from anyone besides me? So that's
a new one.
So that is something that you can do that's easy, that will set you apart from everyone else.
Wow. That is good. You mentioned just about that, because I never thought it. From that perspective, because obvious birthday message, when you get it, it really gets you a little excited when you receive that. And I know the reason why we're having this meeting today is because we were supposed to have it tomorrow, which is happening to be my birthday.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And I'm saying that maybe like you say, that I don't feel obvious. Every year when during the birthday, I get all these messages from different community. So what I also try to do, that when you mention that, is that especially when you go to social media, Facebook, there is an auto text that comes in there, and you just click and then it just say happy birthday. I think the way I try to be a little bit more unique is to try to make a little bit personalized and to make a little bit longer text message. And you can do that and maybe have a way that you can copy and paste to a couple of people, but it's a little bit different from what people just say happy birthday, happy birthday. That makes a little bit stand out more. But I think what you mentioned about is maybe going far and doing it 6 months before. I think that's really.
Then the other thing, and if you've missed the 6 months before, what you can do also on the birthday, to your point, to be different on the birthday, you can also Google famous people's birthdays on your birthday. And then you can look at that list and see who might that person know.
Mm.
You can say, hey, Jeffrey, did you know that your birthday, I'm making this up, is the same day as Joe Biden's birthday?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you probably wouldn't know that.
This is a chick that
And that's unique.
Ty Curry used to
That
mess
is,
with.
that is
Georgia
very unique.
Johnson.
Very unique. I agree with you.
No, I'm just listening. I'm listening. She's part of a book writing thing.
Okay, so sorry for that. If you're on call, please try to mute yourself so that we can be on the same page. Sorry for that. Trying to see if I did. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Yeah, so is there some other tips that maybe you may want to add? I know you mentioned about budget, and I think the other thing for me, probably I've also tried to is also maybe find, if I'm reaching out to know about Giselle, I may want to know maybe what are the things that maybe of recently has happened. Have you received an award? Have you been speaking at a different forum or somewhere? And sometimes you find that that helps to build a conversation, to start your conversation when you are talking to somebody. And I think when you talk about networking, it's a big challenge because people always think about, how do I start a conversation? How do I engage these people who are strangers? And I don't know how to start a conversation. Maybe you may share a little bit about that.
Sure. So a good way to start a conversation, I'm going to go to a live environment, and then I'll give some examples about virtual. So for live environments here in St. Louis, there are often different dinner events that usually have pre-receptions. And what I often recommend, because people can just feel very overwhelmed and, being in a room with people they don't know. And I would say also the immigrant community may not be accustomed to being in a room with that many people they don't know. Networking puts a fear in some people. It's almost like public speaking. Some people are afraid, to speak publicly. So what I always recommend, if you're someone who doesn't feel comfortable networking, find someone that's in the room that also is by themselves, that is not talking to anybody else, because that probably means they too don't know anyone in the room. Mm-hmm. And they would really be very happy to meet your acquaintance if you would just introduce yourself to them. So in that case, let's say you're I'm going to use a good example, at the Vitendo for Africa Gala in a couple weeks.
Sure. Yes. December 18th.
That's right, on the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that you're there and you get there early and there's a pre-event and you see that someone is not speaking with someone else. I would approach that person, because usually that's going to be a safe bet that they're going to talk to you. Then I would usually say something about the event. Easy. What brings you here? How did you come to know about Vitendo for Africa? Mm-hmm. Real easy. And then where are you from? Are you from St. Louis? Are you from Africa? And if so, from where? And then depending on where they're from, you can always learn something else about something unique about a place that you haven't been, if they're from somewhere that you haven't been or that you know very little about. And usually from there, the ball just keeps rolling. So that's one way to introduce yourself. Now, when it comes down to virtual events, what I would suggest is oftentimes before the event, you may know who's attending the event. So then that's when you use Jeffrey's strategy. And you can start to Google people that are going to be there. And sometimes, depending on what it is, if it's a conference, sometimes they'll say, the name of the company, the business that person is in. So say if you have an interest in that company, then you can actually go and Google that person, right? And you can get all the great information that Jeffrey just mentioned. Have they recently written an article? Have they recently gotten an award? And then in the chat, you can actually send them a note and say, hey, Jeffrey, I understand you just started this amazing organization over a decade ago called Vitendo for Africa. I think that's amazing. Please tell me, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. So break the ice by introducing yourself, by portraying that you know something about the person that you want to meet. I think that, people like for others to know about them. And if you've actually done a little homework, that can be impressive. And I would say you also want to use that type of tactic when you are particularly for LinkedIn. So if you're trying to get to know someone on LinkedIn that you don't know, instead of just saying request, send them a note, do a little homework. I think it's a lot more impressive if someone believes that you've done a little homework on them, you know a little bit about them, you've made a little effort, as opposed to when you just press the button and say connect. So those are a couple of tips for working in a virtual world.
Yes, I think I agree with you, because also the other thing that I also find it is that, and I think it happens when you're meeting with somebody for the first time, it helps you before, even whether it's an interview, whether it's a business consult, you're consulting, or whatever contract you're trying to do. I think having that conversation at the beginning, it helps to build the connection of maybe to help them connect with you. And I find it very interesting. If I will want to know I'm meeting with Giselle tomorrow, I'm going to go to the internet first, connect to the LinkedIn account, read about the stuff, maybe some of the things you've commented, some of the events that you recently you participated. And like now, when we had just coming from Thanksgiving, you're coming from Thanksgiving, I want to know what all your social media was talking about. If you're talking about you were hiking over Thanksgiving, or you had a couple of families are there on Thanksgiving, then that will be a good starting point to say, hey, how was you? I look like you had a great time with Thanksgiving. You have some little information that helps you to get the conversation going on, as opposed to just showing up and then you have no information that, and I think with the internet now, you can be able to get a lot of information, but also the LinkedIn is also something that is a great resource to network. I think you can actually use the LinkedIn a lot. Also, what I've done myself is, maybe if I have a meeting with, I'm trying to reach out to somebody that may be Eve, and I don't know Eve, I go to her LinkedIn and I see, is there anybody in her link that we have in common? Yes. And I'm gonna say, hey, Giselle, looks like you know Eve, would you mind introducing me to her? Because I also realize that when you're just stranger introducing to somebody, it's a little bit, chances of getting that real connection is a little bit a challenge. But if somebody get that person who is very connected, can say, hey, I know Geoffrey, and 1, 2, 3, well, I think he's a great person you can talk to. So the conversation always becomes a little bit easier. And I'll say, I mean, for me, I've done Giselle. I hope Betsy is around, because I know she's a great connector in St. Louis. So if I need anything, I just reach out to her and said, looks like you know so and so. And she's generous. She's like that. I always say that we should be able to have some people like her, because there are people who are really gifted in connecting with people, and you can use on that.
Matter of fact, I actually called Betsy last week because my chapter of the links, we were looking to actually do some work with, to see if there were individuals here in St. Louis that had connections to Haiti. If there was some work that we can do with people here to assist in Haiti. And that was the first person I thought of. I actually called Betsy. So to your point, it's also, and that's also like utilizing your network, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing we have to think about, and sometimes we don't, and I'm guilty of this sometimes. I have a lot of amazing friends, but we don't often think about them in the context of what they do professionally. And sometimes your friends can actually assist you with something that you might need, or you may not know a friend of yours worked at a certain company. So I would always say also, it's not just about, networking is not about a one-hit wonder type of thing. It's really an opportunity for you to develop a relationship with someone. So it doesn't mean that you just, send them one birthday card and then you just never reach out to them again. And if that's what you do, well, that was your lost opportunity to actually develop a relationship, because people do business with people that they like. And people help people that they like and that they know, or that someone close to them actually knows.
Great, great. I'm reading a comments here that Betsy just said that she already connected with you. She already connected with somebody. So I think the other part I wanted to hear from you is that maybe throughout your networking experience and the time that you've been doing networking, it's I always tell people it's not that everybody is good at it. You have to start somewhere and you have to get over that fear. And people, myself, are still trying to build that and get over that fear. But I think I've reached a point where I can be able, if I want to go to an event, the excuse of not finding somebody that I know there is not an excuse for me anymore, because I've tried and I've learned it over and over and over time. So probably maybe on your experience, you may be able to tell us, along the way, what are the biggest lessons that you have learned, maybe to help somebody who maybe want to build that confidence? I mean, what have you learned along the way about the networking thing?
So one thing that I've learned is that you need to have an understanding of the people that you're networking with. I happen to be an extrovert. That's probably obvious. But there are individuals that are introverts. And networking or being at an event and talking to a lot of people in a condensed period of time is very exhausting to someone who is an introvert. So what I've learned is that you have to also try to understand how that person is. For example, if I have individuals that I work with that are introverts, having back-to-back calls or back-to-back virtual meetings, that does not work for an introvert. That just drives them nuts. They don't like it. So what I've learned about networking too is to understand more about the person that you're networking with and try to network with them in the manner that works for them. Because in networking, it's not all about you. It's really all about the other person. One thing that I've learned. And then the other thing that I've learned, which is why I try to give easy tips, is some people, like the term networking, for many has somewhat of a negative connotation. They feel like they don't feel good about the word or the term. And there's a lack of comfort in terms of being able to network. So when I have talks like this, I always like to give quick, easy things that you could just do tomorrow. Like you don't have to wait to figure out the birthday card situation, right? You could implement that tomorrow. The other thing that I've learned is, in life, we make a plan for ourselves. If you want to develop a business, you have a business plan. If you work within a company, you typically have a strategic plan. Well, you should also have a networking plan. And that's something that you don't hear a lot of people talking about. And as a result, a lot of people don't have one. Mm-hmm. And this is another way for you to be unique. We're coming into a new year. We're coming into 2020. So for those of you who create resolutions on January 1, as opposed to on your birthday, this is a good time for you to be thinking about for 2022, what are your goals? And depending on your goals, who do you have to meet, or what types of people or what types of industries would you like to meet in order to help facilitate your goals? And then begin figuring out, who are those people and build a plan for yourself to actually get there. There's also, and I see my coaches on here too, Pat. One of the things that I actually learned, Pat Perkins, one of the things I learned from her was how to, darn it just went out of my mind just like that. It'll come back to me. Darn it. There's something that I learned from her and it just went just like that as soon as I said her name. Sorry about that, Pat, but it will come back to me. But in general, I would say it's interesting in being a speaker and someone that's passionate about networking, someone who has experience in networking. I still am learning about networking opportunities. So I think what that's a testament to is that we have to be lifelong learners. in whatever it is that we do. And in so doing, you also have to stay current, right? Because I would say 10 years ago, social media wasn't as prominent as it is. We weren't doing virtual meetings like this. So networking changes in terms of fitting the environment that you're in.
Great. Thank you so much. And the other part that I wanted maybe related to that is networking helps us to open up doors that maybe you could not be able to do it by yourself. Access to opportunities maybe that one could not have by their own. So probably my question maybe is how can we use networking to bridge the racial inequalities that we all face in this country?
How to bridge, so how can we bridge a gap bridge the gap of inequality with networking?
That's correct.
Excellent, yes. So for that, I think I have tips for those that are from my favorite continent, from Africa. And that is, one thing is just really be intellectually curious about other people and other cultures. You know, by coming here to the United States, you're exposed to a lot of different cultures that you haven't been exposed to. And it gives you an opportunity to curiously, legitimately learn about other people. I believe that in so doing, like say if you're someone that let's say you're a student and there's someone in your class that's from Ireland. Well, you might not know anything about Ireland. So that's a good way to kind of introduce yourself and say, hey, I've never met anyone from Ireland. Tell me about, the culture there. Tell me about your flag and what it represents. Tell me if I were a visitor, what would I go see? So I think that's the intellectual curiosity. And I think that helps to bridge gaps. And that person may not know someone from the African continent. So that's an opportunity for them to learn as well. I would also say, be willing to learn. And this is for African Americans and African immigrants. Be willing to learn from people that don't look like you. Because typically, for those of us whose skin has been kissed by nature's sun, oftentimes the people that we're working for are not going to look like us. So because of that, it's really to manage to learn about them. And to understand them, to understand how they actually work, and to not be afraid to get to know them. The other thing that I would add is that you can also talk about experiences from your own perspective. Being from Kenya, people that haven't been there have no idea. So I think one way of bridging a gap is just really learning about other people, other nationalities, other races that are different from yours. And I believe in this culture of currently with all of the racial unrest and social justice movements, I actually believe you can do it by actually being transparent about that's what you want to do. I'd like to learn more about your culture. And I think people would be actually open to that you're curious about their culture. And then in terms of Americans bridging the gap, you can do volunteer work at organizations like Vitendo for Africa. You can call Betsy and find out what it is that you can do with the Mosaic Project. She works with immigrants from all over the world. And in the book that she wrote, it's all about helping immigrants actually find jobs. So maybe you know how to help with resume writing. Maybe you know someone at Bear and they want to work there and you can introduce them. So I think there's a number of things that we can do to actually bridge the gap. But I think you have to actually be intentional about what you do. And Jeffrey, I was going to actually share something because it goes to prove how we like to identify with people who are like us. We were recently at an event. You were there a weekend. And I noticed that the Africans were sitting together and the African Americans were sitting together. And that's probably because that's who we knew, that's who we are familiar with. But to be intentional, when you go into those environments, sit outside of the people that you know, because you already know the people that you know and get to know others. I don't know if you picked up on that, but I noticed that.
No, I did. I did notice that, and I think.
Ingrid, you busy?
Sorry, I need to. So I know.
No. Let me see.
I noted that, and I think what you mentioned is very true, that you have to be intentional to be able to be connecting with people. I mean, and learn from different groups. Is it? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. I can hear you.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say you have to be very intentional, and the thing that I always tell people is that if I want to know more about, I'm from Kenya, but I think the list that I have among the friends, I have almost a friend from, I just met with somebody from Cameroon, and she called me and she was asking a question about immigration, and then in the conversation I asked her, where are you from? And she says, I'm from Cameroon. And I said, do you know so and so? And she said, oh, that's my uncle. And I'm like, so we had a conversation all this time, and they were like, okay. So I think just because of that little connections, you find that you actually have more you enjoy more talking to people than when you have little connection. The other thing, when you mentioned about using networking to address the issue of racial inequality, is because I always tell the African immigrants that I reach out to is that if you only hang out with people from your own community, then you will not be able to know or access some of the opportunities and resources that are outside the people that you hang out with. If we are to get some companies to work with companies that are really looking for people from different nationalities, and we have nobody that we know that works in that particular company, then we are limiting ourselves in terms of resources and opportunities that we can reach out to. So the thing that you mentioned about, you have to be very intentional, and you have to look at the list of your list of friends and say, I see this, how diverse is this group? Because when we talk about telling people that we need to promote diversity, we need to do all this kind of diversity and inclusion, but your list of friends is not diverse, then you have a problem. You have a problem. The problem is you. It's not actually the authority or the government. It is actually, if everyone would be very intentional and say, I am looking at list of my friends, and I have to be intentionally have a couple of people from different nationalities. I have Africans, I have Caucasians, I have Hispanic. I think that's the way we can be able to change our country, because I always tell people, if I met somebody from Ghana, or my friend from a Hispanic community, and every time somebody talk about Hispanic community, the first thing that comes into my mind is, you're talking about so and so. You're talking about my friend. If you're friend to somebody from Haiti, and somebody talks very negative about people from Haiti, I think the first thing, the bulb that lights up is, you're talking about so and so, and that becomes a little bit more. You become very emotional because now you're talking about somebody you know. But if you have no connections, you have nobody that you have no feeling. There's no feeling that comes with that. So I think the best way to do it, like you said, you gotta have to be intentional and be able to change that. If we want, we always say, if you want to change the world, you can't change the world, but you can change the world around you. And if everybody becomes that intentional, I think we will be able to make that. It starts with the region. It starts with you. Go to the region, and then eventually we'll be able to make an impact in the country. I think the other part that I wanted maybe to hear from you is, yeah, I don't know. You might have mentioned a little bit about for the immigrants. Maybe would you maybe share a little bit about the Africans, Americans, or the Americans themselves? Is there anything that they can do to be more welcoming to the African immigrants, or to any kind of immigrants, or the immigrants we have? What can they do to be more welcoming and be able to have it. And I think maybe to highlight some of it, I always tell people, if I want to connect with a Hispanic, I learn one language, one word, how to say hi
Yes.
in the language. And then if you want to know something from Swahili, I tell people just learn how to say jambo. And the moment you say jambo to any Swahili speaking person, you get the attention. So maybe you can share a little bit about that, how maybe from your experience, how you've been able to use your experience and connect.
Yes. So I think you asked the question and you answered it. So
I wanted to add on it, give you a hint of it and add on it. Yes.
you gave a great answer. And I would say from myself, I just love the African continent, period. I mean, I love the sun, and of course it's closer to the equator. So, since I've worked there, I've actually visited 14 countries there because I love it. In every country that I go to, I keep in contact with people there. Like now with what's going on, like I have friends in Zimbabwe, I have friends in Zambia, and I know right now you can't fly from Zimbabwe, you can't fly from Johannesburg. So I'm checking on them, to kind of see, how they're doing. But these are people that are actually native to the area. But that's just because I have an interest. But I think it gets back to, as African Americans, how can we, be more friendly to Africans? Again, I think it's really it's intentionality. Again, it has to be something that you want to do. And, now that we're embarking on a new year, for those of you who have networks that kind of look like you, consider for the new year, you're going to meet one person a month that's not in your culture or your race. And you're going to work on developing a relationship with that person. So by the time 2022 ends, you will have 12 new friends that don't look like you. But again, it's up to you to actually do the work. So that's what I believe, Jeffrey. And then attending events like this. So I've learned so much in terms of our, the 3 or 4 sessions that we had last year in terms of relating Africans and African immigrants and African Americans in terms of marriage, in terms of education, in terms of history. But again, that's because I'm legitimately just interested in the topic. And, if we're here and we're African Americans, we likely have come from the motherland, descended from it. And I just think it's difficult to come from the African continent and not take an interest in the people that are from there here in the United States. Something seems awkward about that to me, but that's how I work. So I would encourage everyone that's here, if you don't know African immigrants, they are in every single state. So take an opportunity as we go into the new year to get to know someone from the motherland, and learn about their food, learn about their rituals, learn about their culture. Interesting to learn about marriage. I thought that was one of the most interesting ones that we actually had.
Great. I think for now, I will open up for the public, to maybe people in the audience. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Or maybe if you want something, you can add on it. The topic is networking. If you have some input, you may want to add it. This is an open forum, and we are all here to learn. No one is an expert.
I just want to jump on for a quick moment and say hello to my friend, my dear friend, Giselle Marcus. You did such a wonderful job, as always. So such a pleasure to see you again. I have to jump off to my next Zoom call, but thank you as well, Jeffrey, for hosting this extraordinary opportunity for us to learn and grow from the GOAT of networking, for sure. All right.
Thank you, Pat. Good seeing you. This is my coach. So yes. And I would say that's something else too, from a career perspective. We had talked about maybe talking about this, but something that has happened in my career has helped the trajectory of it. And I would actually share this with the African community, because I don't know that I ever have. consider hiring a professional for the industry that you're going into.
Mm.
It changed my career. And a matter of fact, when I went to South Africa, Pat, actually, I had a conversation with her because I had never done an expatriate assignment before. So I was like, oh my God, what is it that I don't know? When I told her I was going to South Africa, she said, well, I have other clients who have done expatriate assignments. And it gave me an opportunity to talk to them so that I could ask the appropriate questions about like my housing, about my car, just things that can be upside down if you don't ask about them before you go. But it's like everything else. If it's your first time, you don't know. So one thing too, that I would advise, an executive coach will change your life. Thank you, Pat, for being life-changing.
Great. That is awesome. Anybody else? Thank Pat. I want to be in your network. And I think we have Betsy. If you may add something from your book, actually. You mentioned about networking.
Yes.
Strongly about it. Yeah.
I would just say that I build on what Giselle has said. I think there are some very common questions that you can use to network. For example, asking, as she said about Thanksgiving, but asking, talking about the holidays that people share, sports, food, travel. Those are really good topics that everyone likes to talk about. And I think if you're curious and, and you say, Betsy, what is your favorite ethnic restaurant in St. Louis? And then I will say, what's yours? And, again, it becomes a commonality. I guess my only other thought is that the idea of networking to me really means about relationships, making relationships, and kind of get rid of the word networking and think about relationships. And my guidance is always, if you're going to go to some event where you walk in and you don't know that many people, is think that you're going to get try to make 3 good connections. And if you make 3 good connections and then you follow up later with an email or a LinkedIn invitation, 3 is great. You don't have to give out a lot of business cards. You don't have to shake 100 hands. You don't have to say hi to 30 people. But if you have 3 good conversations and get to know a little bit about Jeffrey, a little bit about Giselle, a little bit about Gloria, if you have those 3 good conversations at an event, that's a success.
Well said, Betsy.
That's true. I think something else maybe it's good to highlight. When we go for events, we always get a bunch of businesses, and I think you've mentioned that on the article, Giselle. We get all the businesses, but we call them, but then following after 3 weeks, a month, 2 weeks, 2 months, somebody has already forgotten you. I try to do email the following day. If not the same night, the following day, I would do a small email introduction or thank you note, just thank you. Hey, thank you for your time that we had to yesterday. Because if you do a little bit too late, chances are they may not remember you. They met so many people in an event, they may not be able to remember you. Thank you so much, Betsy, for that. And I think your book is also available for those who have not been able to get the book. Maybe you may share the link on the chat, Betsy. For those who may want to reach out to you and to read the book. Any other question? We have a chat for people who may want to ask a question or either put a comment.
So hi, this is Jackie. Giselle, sorry, I can't show my face, I'm packing. However, I have benefited from you being a connector in this networking world. I know you do that with friends and others. I sent Jeffrey a note, but I do have time. Can you just elaborate on how you make that piece work so well also?
When you say that piece, how I connect people?
The connecting piece is part of the networking that you're so good at as well. And I've benefited from that.
Thank you, Jackie.
Sure, I'm gonna mute now.
So a piece of that, I think I have a natural knack for it. And I believe that's because I'm an only child.
Johnny.
And by myself, always wanting to have other kids to play with, people to talk to. I just naturally put people together. And I just have noticed, particularly my group of friends, of which Jackie and a number of others that are on here it's so easy to connect like people. And whenever people in my network meet each other, they love each other. And Jackie can testify to that, because I've had some events where I pull people together, and we actually even have a group meet with some ladies that I gather with from time to time that all of them didn't know each other, but now they do. And yeah, I just like pulling people together. And for others of you that haven't done that, think about people in your network that can benefit from knowing one another. Even if you know people in the same industry, but they're not at the same company, they benefit from knowing one another. If you know people that went to the same school, for example, commonality, people connect on commonalities. So if you know people went to the same school, connect them. Thank you, Jackie, for that question. That was good.
Thank you.
Any other question? At least you have a few minutes. Could be a question.
I don't have a question, but just perhaps a comment. I just want to thank you and Giselle for sharing such a wealth of information this evening. But I also am friends with Giselle and professional associates with her as well. And one of the things I wanted to comment on was that there are a lot of networking opportunities in informal ways. And oftentimes, you know, we think that it has to be structured and business and professional, but there are so many informal networking opportunities too, where you can find commonalities with each other. You know, it could be a homeowners association meeting, could be soccer league for individuals who have children, or any other type of informal networks that are available.
That's good, Quinn. You know what? I think I'm going to write my next LinkedIn article about informal networking. This is where I get my inspiration, right? And hearing from others in the audience. But I think that's actually very right. And to your point, Jeffrey, when asking about how African immigrants can get comfortable with networking, informal networks is a good way for them to do that, because they're in a group of like-minded people already. Get to know the people in the group, because clearly you already have something in common to talk about. Thank you, Quinn.
Yep, I think that's a good point to mention. And I think I've seen also, the other thing I also see at the workplace, normally some companies organize or they host some employees, especially right now during the end of the year. There is a lot of companies parties that are organized maybe outside the working place. They meet on a Friday, Saturday night. Unfortunately, I know a lot of African immigrants, they don't attend those events because it's an option, but it's a great place where you're gonna meet who is the senior manager in the company. These are the people who will reach making decision who is gonna be promoted, who is, when the opportunity available, they are there. If you have made some real connection with them, they will actually, some of them would actually reach out maybe in a later date and say, hey, there is an opening that's coming up somewhere. You might be able to apply because they're already in that position where they're able to make those decisions. So I think I agree with that. And also, like you mentioned sports. It's not something that we think it's a good thing to go. You just go there, drop your kids and you go, or you hang out in your car. Yet there are so many people there. So reaching out and having that video conversation is a great resource for you to do that. Yeah, thank you, Quinn, for that comment. Anybody else?
Hey, good evening. This is John Haynes, and I don't have a question, but you know, Giselle is one of my favorite people on the earth, and I think that I just want to tell you what I've observed from her and with her in the years that I've known her that helps with the beauty and the divinity of her networking. And there are some words that I wrote down about her since I've known her that have made her networking strong. And she sees people as a treasure. And I think that she also sees people, she sees networking, although it's a trite term, she sees it as a ministry. I believe she does. She's never said it to me, but I believe she sees it as a ministry. And it's imperative that she does it because she sees the connectivity between us on a global level. The other thing that she did for me is that she wants to see me successful. And because she wants to see me successful, she always has me on heart and mind. And so when she meets the next person, whether it's in Africa or London or in St. Louis or Wisconsin, like she knows, all right, call John because John may be a good connector for this person in her network. And so all these things she keeps a running tab on. And that's why she's so brilliant at it. And she's just a light. And she's not, I think another thing that's imperative for all of us is to not be afraid to use your voice. And when you speak up and you speak out, whether it's commentary on LinkedIn or Facebook, that attracts the right people to you. That attracts people to you. And that one comment can build a relationship for a lifetime. And I think that, you know, Giselle knows all these things and she knows how to leverage them in a very authentic and real way. And so that's the beauty of what she brings to the table and why she's here tonight. So love you, Giselle. Thank you so much for all you've done for me and all you keep doing. I'm watching.
Thank you, John.
You got it.
I'm a fan of his too, quite honestly. I mean, this gentleman uses, I mean, he comes up with words. I'm like, ooh, wow. I have to describe it. He can make the most plain thing be amazing. And whenever, and often, I want to say, I feel like whenever I post something on LinkedIn, he always makes some type of astounding comment about it that always makes me smile. So good seeing you, John. And thank you for sharing.
Good. I think you mentioned a very good point about if you're commenting also. When people post some stuff and you comment, you share, you reshare. Even if it's somebody you're trying to reach out and to know, like you mentioned about on LinkedIn, they're always posting stuff on it, and you can just go comment. You can always go say something about it, because that's also a part of the connecting. Because when you're reaching out in person, you're not going to be a stranger that time, because you've already made some initial conversation, and that helps to build those connections. Thank you so much. And I think also mentioning about appreciating people. What he just mentioned, John Hayes, is appreciating Giselle. And I think everybody feels good to be appreciated. And I think that becomes also a big strength on a way to build your connection with people. If you're good, but if you're good in gratitudes, then gratitude will take you to so many places. One more question or comment, and then we wrap it up, because I think we were just 2 minutes, I think, over time. On time, we were supposed to, we're supposed to be on 7:15 time. Okay, anyone with a comment or something? But I think before, as we get that, then I'll come back to Giselle. You can share a little bit about these great opportunities that you're giving us tonight in regards to reading that article and the resources that you have.
Oh, you said one more question. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
I want to see if somebody has, we don't want to leave out if somebody had something, and then we'll give you a time to say something. Going once, going twice. All right, go ahead.
So what I wanted to offer for all of you that are spending your, is it Wednesday night with us. You could be somewhere else, spending time somewhere else, doing something else. And I wanted to appreciate you for being here. So if you would be kind enough to if you would like a copy of my essay that is in the book, as I told you, it's an anthology of like 20 different essays, but if you would like just my essay, I would like to gift that to you free of charge. So if you put your email address in the chat, I will actually email you the PDF version of my essay on networking.
It's a great Christmas present tonight. I love that. So I see people posting their emails there. That's awesome. I think for me, I would say thank you so much for everyone who's been in the audience. This means a lot. Like Giselle said, it is such platform, it's such a forum that you're able to know and learn from different communities that right now a lot of people are doing Zoom meeting, and I think when people are posting chats there in their email there, if you know somebody, I always also inbox people that are on the Zoom meeting. If you're somebody that you're also trying to connect with, you may find them in a Zoom meeting. Just send them an inbox. Hey, good to see you there. Good to see you today. And so tomorrow you find out you have a better way of starting it. I would say that we have, like we mentioned, we have our gala that's coming up on December 18th. We will hope that we will have you join us. I posted, and I'm gonna post again. If you go to our website on event page, scroll down, you're gonna see where you can click there and sign up, register. The ticket is $55 for one person. If you are two, you can do $100. If you want to book a table, it's $400. And if you want to donate, that is also an option for you to donate. It's through that support that we are able to continue doing the work we do. At the same time, it's a great event that we bring our different community together. We also honor our people who have been helping us in our community in different ways. People have done tremendous job in different ways. And every year we do that, take this opportunity to say thank you. Like I said, we don't do things to be appreciated, but everyone feels good to be appreciated. And we also taught that you don't do good things because you feel good. You feel good because you do good things. And I think that by doing good things is why we come together and say thank you. One of the things as I mentioned, Betsy Cohen will be one of our recipients for this year award, because she has been great job, and there's no other better way to say thank you, Betsy, for the great work you're doing. And she's among other people that will be the recipient. So please join us, and let's have time to enjoy the African music and African dance, and we can learn a little bit about different culture at that time. Other than that, keep on checking on our social media and also on our website on upcoming events. We hope that you will also join us on our Building Momentum speaker series in January. But wishing you all the best. Have a nice evening, and God bless you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.